Word, your mother, boys and girls. It is your boy Sniper West coming at you here from WizardSportsPicks.com, and it is Monday. It's actually the only day that we don't have college basketball for quite a while, Wiz. Looking forward to this tournament. March Madness is officially upon us, and I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping first. Please make sure you go to the website, WizardSportsPicks.com. Plenty of great stuff going on over there. We are running some March Madness specials. You can get any capper every single play through the championship game. Packages will be less than $100. It's going to be priced according to the handicapper. Every capper will have their own price. But we will have a promo code. I don't know if we've come up with that code yet, Wiz. But we will have a promo code that will get you $10 off. I believe that's what we decided on. And please make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. It does help our analytics. So, Wiz, we've got some college basketball to watch. Looking forward to it. Are you going to just be chilling on your couch just like you did last weekend? Or are you going to go out and watch any of the games? Or what's the plan?
No, I will not be going out to watch any games. I will have them on, multiple iPads and computer and TV. But I will be here by myself unless my son drops in and watch some night games with me.
Beautiful. So we do have the bracket. It's out. I'm sure everybody's had a chance to take a look already. So obviously we have Florida, Duke, Michigan, and Arizona as the one seeds. Florida will be playing either Prairie View or Lehigh. That'll be to be determined. Duke has Siena, and poor Siena. Let me tell you what, this line opened up at 28.5, Wiz. As well it should be. And you know what? I know Duke's banged up and everything, but I think they might cover that number, to be honest with you. I mean, Siena, and you're familiar with Siena, being in the MAAC. Do you have any thoughts on this particular game?
It's that's who they got a very tough first round, an impossible first round game. I wouldn't lay it and I wouldn't take it. It's, you can't lay those kind of points. You just, but Siena's, they're a well-coached team. McNamara does a great job. They got some presence down low. They got Doty who could shoot. I wouldn't be surprised that, they cover that 29.5 point spread. They could also get blown all out of the water because, they don't take, Shire doesn't take the foot off the pedal. And I just don't see how they're going to contain some of those guys on that team, on Duke. So
yeah. Well, in the same exact region there in the East, we have a team that you're very familiar with as well, Wiz. We have St. John's playing Northern Iowa. Very interesting matchup here. We got St. John's laying 9.5 points. Obviously, St. John's has been playing well. And unfortunately, Northern Iowa has a big task ahead of them. And I know that Patino. You think he's going to have his guys fired up, ready to play here?
Well, Patino has a great record in first round games, and he's played many of them with both Louisville, Kentucky. He might have played one with Iona. St. John's, they come off a pounding of UConn at the Garden on Saturday to win the Big East tournament. I don't see a letdown, but, again, you're laying, almost double digit odds. All they have to do is win the game, which they likely will. But if they're struggling in the first half, you could be sure Patino will take them to the woodshed in the second at halftime, and you'll see a different team in the second half. So that's the tale of two halves with Coach P.
Yeah. It's always that dreaded 5 and 12 matchup, right? We seem to always get the 12 upsetting the 5. I don't know what it is about those two particular numbers, but it happens quite a bit. I'll tell you what.
Go ahead. I just want to say that St. John's, I think the way they did the committee did the seating here, they did a great job. I think that Miami, Ohio deserved to play in the play-in game and probably no further than that. But I think St. John's should have been a little better than a 5 seed. I could have easily made them a 4 seed. Um, their body of work certainly deserved a 4 seed, but I'm sure Patino isn't losing sleep on the fact that he is a 5th seed.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Northern Iowa, they're no slouch. They're 23-12 this season, 19-15 against the spread. It sits at 10.5 right now as far as the line goes. So, yeah, that'll be a very interesting matchup. Moving over to the Midwest, the 5-12 here, we got Texas Tech and Akron. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you probably don't follow Akron too closely. I know you don't follow the MAC.
Oh,
All
I
that close.
follow that. I follow that. I do.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Yeah, Akron playing very well also. And Texas Tech, they've had a very interesting season. Obviously, if you remember, they upset Iowa in Ames, which we had talked about that game. I'm looking forward to this game. Anything jump out in particular about this region? So we have, let's see here. We have obviously Michigan's the 1 seed. They're going to be either playing UMBC or Howard. We have Georgia and St. Louis is the 8-9, Texas Tech and Akron, that's the 5-12. Alabama, Hofstra, Tennessee, and then obviously the play-in Miami, Ohio, or SMU will be playing Tennessee. Virginia at Wright State, Kentucky at Santa Clara, Iowa State at Tennessee State. Any matchups jump out at you here?
Well, I just want to go back to the East Regional, the other side. Looking at these number 1 seeds, I really feel Duke has the toughest task.
Yeah.
They could play St. John's, they could play UConn, they can have a meeting with Florida, or Houston. Duke's banged up, and they were all out to win against Virginia. And they were, Cameron Boozer was exhausted. His brother actually, carried the torch, helped that team big time. But to me, when I look at these 1 seeds, I think Duke has the tougher road to the Final Four. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Obviously, UConn is playing Furman. Danny Hurley is going to have his boys ready to go. That's also in the East as well. UConn laying 18.5 points versus Furman. UCLA playing UCF. Kansas, Cal Baptist. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting bracket. So, yeah, as far as the Midwest, the 5-12. So we were talking about Texas Tech and Akron. So obviously, we had discussed that Texas Tech beat Iowa State earlier this season. This game is going to be on Friday, by the way. So Texas Tech, 17-15 against the spread, 22-10 overall record. They were 5-5 on the road, 14-2 at home. Obviously, this will be at a neutral location. Akron played quite well in the tournament. Obviously, beating Toledo, beating Kent State. Anything in particular jump out at you in this 5-12 matchup, Akron and Texas Tech?
Well, I mean, Texas Tech, I love their coach. I love how hard they play. Akron is definitely stepping up in weight class here. I think Akron could stick around. I don't, I mean, it wouldn't be a shock if they upset them. What's the spread on this game?
7.
7. It's a tough game. It's a really tough game. Yeah, it just is. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion there.
All right, moving over to the South. Obviously, Florida is the 1 seed. They're waiting for either Prairie View or Lehigh here. Clemson and Iowa should be pretty spicy. That's the 8-9 there. We have Vanderbilt and McNeese, 2 teams. I believe McNeese State is in Tennessee. So we have 2 teams from Tennessee here. Obviously, Vanderbilt laying 11.5. Vanderbilt is off the loss to Arkansas in the championship game. But if you remember, I mean, they beat Florida on Saturday. They beat Florida 91-74. That was a very, very impressive showing. I believe Florida was laying, I want to say double digits, like 11 points in that game. Maybe I'm wrong. No, it was 7.5, actually. Florida was laying 7.5. But I don't know. There's a lot of people saying that Vandy can make some noise in the tournament. I have some friends, 3 of them, in fact, from high school that all three of them went to Vanderbilt. So whenever Vanderbilt plays, we have a text trail, and I'll come back from the restroom or something, and I'll have about 100 messages from them watching the Vandy. And that's Vandy football or basketball. They're diehards. But, they were 18-15 against the number this year. They were the first team to reach 20 wins in the SEC, which is a very big accomplishment for them with teams like Florida and, Alabama and some really big players in that conference. You think Vandy can make some noise in the tournament?
The way they destroyed Florida, that was eye-opening. They lost in the final game to Arkansas, but Arkansas had the best player on the court, and they had a double him, and Arkansas shooters had a field day. But Arkansas is certainly capable of making a run. Vanderbilt is certainly capable of making a run.
Yeah, for sure. So we also have Clemson, Iowa.
That could be a rematch. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, that could be a rematch with Florida, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which would be spicy, and you would have to think that Florida would definitely be up for that game. Obviously it's the tournament, and I talk about revenge. You hear me talking about revenge and revenge spots here and there, but once you get in the tournament, it's kind of like the Super Bowl. Like if you lost to the other team and then you're playing them again in the Super Bowl, it's not like you have revenge. Like both teams are going to be trying 100%. You know what I mean? Revenge really only applies to, during the regular season, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Florida is, to me, the better team. It doesn't matter what happened, in that game against Vandy. We saw UConn dismantle St. John's and Hartford, by like 30, and then they come to the Garden and St. John's whoops their ass by 20. So,
yeah.
It's revenge is sweet. And this would be a revenge game because Florida got embarrassed, So
yeah.
I think if it's a Florida Vandy, I would take Florida but again, the point spread is always the equalizer. But just straight up, I'll take Florida.
Yeah. So we get to the final. We get to the West here, and so looking at the 5-12 here, we have Wisconsin versus High Point. We got a double-digit spread here. Wisconsin. A lot of people. I was watching SportsCenter before I came on the show, and a lot of people are saying Wisconsin maybe they could make some noise as well. They were 24-10 the regular season. They cover games too, 20-14 against the spread. Obviously, they just lost to Michigan, but they hung tough versus Michigan there on Saturday. Wiz, I know you watched that game, but I don't know how closely you follow High Point at all. But High Point was 30-4. They, they played well on the road too. They were 7-2 away from their home floor, and this will be, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the first time these two teams have ever played. I will say this about Wisconsin, though. They're 7-3 to the over their last 10, so they're scoring a lot. They have a very, high-octane offense. They like to push the pace. Also 7-3 against the spread in their last 10. Any thoughts on High Point in Wisconsin?
Well, I'm very familiar with High Point. High Point's coach was the assistant. The head coach went to Creighton. This guy took over the team. So he basically recruited a lot of the players, and this is a high octane offense as well. The president of High Point is also a very wealthy man that sunk a lot of money into their facility, and it's like the most unbelievable basketball facility for a kind of a lower tier team, not like I'd consider them, in the mid-major level, but their fans travel. He's going to have planes taking fans to out west for this game. So, this is an interesting matchup. Wisconsin is playing really good ball, but High Point scores a lot of points. This could be a very high scoring game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. We also have Utah State and Villanova here, so this is going to be a very interesting game. This is the 8 and 9 seed out of the West, and I was just taking a look at the numbers here. So yeah, both teams. Well, Utah State was 28-6. 15 and 18 against the number. Villanova 24-8. I know you watched some Villanova this year. But yeah, Utah State, I mean, they beat San Diego State in the tournament. They beat Nevada. They beat UNLV. They're pretty battle tested here. You got the Mountain West up against the Big East. Any thoughts on Utah State and Villanova?
Oh, Utah State is really a good team. I think they may have gotten underseeded a little bit. They could have deserved a little higher seed. Villanova is, if their shooters are on, they score. Kevin Willard does a good job. They kind of were not that consistent in the latter part of the season. They got bounced pretty early in the tournament. They're kind of a hot and cold team. If they're bad, if they're not on their shooting, they're not going to win this game. It depends on what version of Villanova shows up. Utah State is rather consistent. They play really well. Interesting game, but like I said, Villanova is going to have to come with their A game.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one other game I wanted to touch on really quickly out of the East again, UCLA and UCF. And I know that Mick Cronin. You guys have rubbed elbows before. This should be a very interesting game. Obviously, UCLA, they lost to Purdue, I believe, in the tournament, right? And but right before that, they beat Michigan State. They beat Rutgers. They looked very impressive in those two games. They covered both of them as well. Central Florida, they lost to Arizona. No shame in that, in the tournament. But before that, they beat Cincinnati. That was actually an exciting game. That was 66-65. UCF 21-11 this year. They're 16-16 against the number. We got the Big 12 up against the Big 10 here. Any thoughts on UCLA, UCF?
Well, when Cronin saw he's got to fly east for this game, he took his desk and flipped it over, and they lost two players that didn't play in the tournament. It looks like they're going to get both back at some point, maybe the first game. I think that's important to see because those are two scorers and two good players. That's a really good game. That's going to be a competitive game, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it. Just so much action on Thursday and Friday, and then we'll see what happens Saturday and Sunday with the turnover. Any other thought? I've kind of just touched on each portion of the country, the South, the East, the Midwest, and the West. Any other matchups you want to talk about? Just looking at the bracket in general.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting how Arizona is really healthy. I'm very impressed by the job Lloyd has done, but they have 4 freshmen that start.
Right.
And, when it gets deep into the tournament, the question is how they will respond under intense pressure the further they go. They're a damn good team, but 4 freshmen. This is the best freshman class I've ever seen, or one of them at least. But, in this environment of NIL, like prior to NIL, there was always Cinderellas. A lot of, there was Cinderellas. Last year, when NIL really, began to peak as far as paying big money for players, it was far from Cinderellas. They all got knocked off. It was very formful. So you wonder if this, as the money increases to buy players, is the history of Cinderellas over? Like, are the main teams who have the most money that have performed really well this season hold a big edge over the so-called Cinderellas? That's an interest. We'll see what happens this year. But last year, all the chalk won.
Yeah.
In looking over the bracket, what's really interesting is Florida could play Houston in a rematch.
Yeah.
And, that I don't think Houston is the same team defensively as they have been in the past. But they're going to be playing that game in Houston, if I'm not mistaken. And, that's a revenge. That's a revenge game. obviously. That was the national championship game.
Right. Right.
Um, you could possibly have, how about a third rematch between St. John's and UConn?
Right.
That's on the table, right?
Yeah.
That's on the table. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I'm just looking at that. And then a possible game could be Arizona against Gonzaga, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's an interesting matchup. The Zags usually get stunted around the Elite Eight, because of the competition they play. But Gonzaga has an elite defense. They don't have the offensive firepower that they've had in the past. But, you got Mark Few against his former assistant. Like, how good is that? Like, that's
Yeah.
a story. That's a storyline in itself, right? Tommy
Yeah.
Lloyd,
Definitely.
assistant to Mark Few for a lot of years. Now they face off with each other. Great defense, against four freshmen. That's an interesting, matchup. Another one you could see is Iowa State, Michigan. You could see that. That's a
Yep.
possibility, right?
Yep.
That's not a gimme for Michigan. Once Iowa State on their best day, they play as good as anybody. I
Yep.
mean, they have to
Absolutely.
come with an A+ game, but the tournament. Forget about the conference tournaments. This is reset for everybody.
Right.
Reset. It doesn't matter that UConn got blown out at the Garden. Do you think Hurley is not going to have UConn ready to
Yeah.
kick some ass? Come on, it's
Exactly.
it's it's a reset. So now it's a new season. Um, the tournament is just a complete. It's one and done. All the marbles in, everything into the middle of the table, all out. That's what
Yeah.
makes it such a great event.
Yeah. Watching that Vanderbilt's and Florida game, it kind of felt like Florida was looking ahead to the tournament. It's kind of why they didn't show up. They almost, to your point, you were saying that this is a reset. It's kind of, I almost feel like they just waved the white flag and checked out of the conference tournament and said, you know what, we have the tournament on deck. Let's just not play our hardest. Obviously, they don't say that, but it just felt that way when I was watching that
I,
game. I don't know.
I think it's a lot more than that, Sniper. It isn't that. It's that, you know, Florida is very physical, but they got punched in the face. And Vandy was so good that day that when Florida tried to respond, they just couldn't do it. We saw that yesterday with Michigan and Purdue.
Yeah.
You see the guards, Lawyer was great, the guard was great. They, you never felt that Michigan had the upper hand in that game. But Michigan's a great team. They're great defensively. But they let the shooters leak out on clear and have clear shots. And it's just, this is a lot of these teams are physical. A lot of these good teams. And when you get punched in the mouth that day, it's just hard to respond. Everybody wanted to win the conference tournament. Nobody was looking ahead. It's just that when you get punched in your gut, you only have a certain amount of minutes to bounce back. Michigan couldn't do it. Florida couldn't do it. But big deal. Now they're back. The tournaments for all the marbles. It's actually a good thing they get their ass kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Wake up call, as they should say. As it relates to the first four, right? We have Texas, NC State, Miami, Ohio, SMU. We talked a little bit about that already. UMBC, Howard, Prairie View, A&M, and Lehigh. Obviously, that's the play-in. So, but this kind of brings back memories. If you remember, Tony Bennett in Virginia losing to UMBC, right? That was actually in the first round of the tournament. But UMBC, remember they were a 16. I think that's the only 16 seed to ever beat a 1 seed, if I remember correctly.
No, I think it happened twice, didn't it?
Okay, I thought it was maybe once, but I don't remember the other game. If it indeed
No,
happened.
I think it was twice. But what happened when Virginia lost? What happened the next season?
Yeah, they went all the way.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
Yeah.
That UMBC matchup against Howard is a really interesting matchup. I started digging through the matchups and the players, and you can make a case for either one. I think that line is, if you did, Howard is about 1.5, 2-point underdog. UMBC had a great season. They beat up on Vermont, a good team, but Howard is, they play really good defense. They have length and size, and UMBC has depth. They play 10 players. So I find that of all the games, I find that game and the SMU Miami Ohio game is an interesting game as well, because we're going to see Miami Ohio is really stepping up in weight class against SMU. We'll really see if their 30-0 season.
Absolutely.
We'll see if their 30-0 season was really legit. I mean, you can make a case. They certainly deserve to be in the tournament. But now we're going to see how good they really are against SMU.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, UMBC, they're 24-8, 19-11 against the number. Howard, 23-10, 21-8 against the number. Yeah, that'll definitely be a thrilling matchup.
I got to know.
Obviously the other.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna talk. I wasn't really gonna talk about the NIT or the CBI, but there's some other tournaments going on as well. Some other opportunities to make money. I'm sure you do. You even follow the NIT and this stuff, Wiz?
Oh, well, I follow the NIT. I think the CBI, that other conference, they're not doing it. They're stopping.
The CIT as well.
Yeah, I think they're stopping that this year. It wasn't at all. It was a loser financially. But I'll tell you, there's just one team I want to touch on, because one of the greatest performances of all time. And pull up the Penn Yale game yesterday. Just pull it up and look at the player that scored 40 on Penn.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
they're playing Illinois.
They're going to be playing. They're going to be playing Illinois. But look at Penn's game against Yale yesterday, because I'm going to make a point.
Power. TJ Power. He had the big Band-Aid on his chin too. But yeah, no, I saw him going off. He was throwing him all over the free throw line, range.
So I know the Yale's coach. I actually sat on a 3-hour plane ride, Jones, for a 3-hour plane ride. I actually wasn't sitting next to him. I was across the aisle, and I saw him next to me, and I paid off the guy that was sitting next to him to switch seats with me, so I can bug him for 3 hours. The only reason he talked to me is that he knew I knew basketball, and he was watching on his laptop his upset victory the year before against Auburn. So he was in a good mood. And so we talked. I have a lot of respect for Jones, but boy, did he make a buffoon move yesterday. Here's this guy, Power, that had one of the greatest shooting performances in the history of sports. And he hit 3 threes in a row, something like that, 2 or 3 threes in a row, 40 points, and they're down 3 with 10 seconds to go in the game or 8 seconds to go in the game. How in the world do you not foul and put the guy on the line, and you let him take a 3? You let the hottest shooter in the history of a game shoot a 3.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that? You foul, let the guy go to the line, make his 2 points, you're still up 1.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was not a very
shocking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
let me tell you,
44
that
points.
guy goes off for 40 against Illinois. I don't know what the over and under is, but that could be one hell of a high scoring game.
Yeah. Yeah, he was 7 of 14 from downtown, 14 of 26 from the floor. He made all 9 free throws. Fantastic performance. Yeah, I was watching that game. In fact, we were texting back and forth about that game. It went to overtime. And Penn won. They won his double-digit. Well, I guess it was 9.5. It was almost a 10-point spread. So congratulations to the Quakers. Anything else you want to hit on the bracket before we head out, Wiz?
No, I mean, we covered it, all of them, except you on Wednesday, you're going to give your bracket picks, and I'm going to critique them. I'll critique them. I will not be giving out my brackets nor any bets that I make. I just can't because I'm too close to the NCAA basketball landscape. But I could critique your picks, which I will do.
We call it analyzing the analysis. So sounds
Or
good. So yeah,
playing
we will be back.
or playing devil's advocate.
There's plenty of that to be done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Wizards Crystal Ball. My name is Sniper Wes, and you can follow me over on Twitter at the Sniper Picks. Please go to the website, wizardsportspicks.com. We're going to have all sorts of specials over there for March Madness, promo codes. You'll see more about that on the Beyond the Lines videos that all the handicappers shoot throughout the week. Also, on Wednesday evening, we will be shooting the Wizards Sports Layer, and that will be with the Wiz himself. He'll be on with myself and Tom Macrina and David Delano. And we will talk more about the tournament that will be starting on, well, we'll already have the plans at that point. So we should have most of the field solidified by then. So looking forward to that, Wiz. We will be back and do this all over again on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next time. Until Wednesday, peace out and keep firing.